Hello, good people of YouTube. Sealord here, and today we have some very interesting stuff coming out of the dev blog. And what makes it more interesting is actually not this dev blog in particular, but rather the patch notes for update 12.8, which should be going live today, the day that this video comes out. And I gotta go back a little bit to explain why this is potentially very exciting for us in particular, the majority of viewers on this channel. So, if you are not aware, Wargaming left Russia and Belarus after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And when they did that, rather than shutting down the game, well, not just this game, but World of Planes and World of Tanks and Russia and Belarus, they transferred them to the studio that they had originally developing World Warships, which was Lesta Studios. Now, Lesta Studios was purchased by Wargaming and turned into Wargaming St. Petersburg, but again, once they left Russia and Belarus, all their live services were transferred over to Lesta Studios now, which Wargaming let go. They released them from ownership, and they're now Lesta Studios once again. So that left us with two versions of the game. We had the Russian client, which is what the players in Russia and Belarus play on, and, well, our client, the main client, if you will. So the European, North American, and Asiatic regions are serviced on the main client. And according to Wargaming, for all business purposes, the two versions of the game, Lesta and Wargaming's, are completely separate and no longer affiliated. However, of course, when you are very suddenly leaving a region and splitting a game like that, it doesn't happen just overnight. They did explain that it was going to be a kind of separation period, where for some times the two versions of the game will be completely the same, but then over time they will start to drift apart. And for some time it did very much look like this. There are some dev blogs that came out with regards to the Russian version of the game that were not released on the dev blog for Wargaming's version of the game, our version, and it looked like that the games had truly split ways for a bit. And then yesterday's article came out for the patch notes for update 12.8. And in the update notes for 12.8, there was a change that was originally announced on the Russian dev blog that hadn't been announced on the main dev blog. And that was the secondary detection changes. If you guys didn't catch that in yesterday's article, if you watched yesterday's video, or you should call it if you watched yesterday's video, because I had a whole section dedicated to it. Now in game, if you somehow get your secondary range to be greater than that of your detection range, which I think there's literally like 2 ships in the game that could do that. I think the Incomparable is one of them. When your secondaries fire, your detection range will now increase out to your secondary range. And again, that change wasn't announced on any dev blog for Wargaming's version of the game, but rather Lesta's dev blog. So that indicates that these changes that are being announced on the Russian dev blog very well might make their way into the main version of the game. The thing about dev blogs is that they're normally released typically a patch or two in advance of when this item or this change is actually coming out, because it's a development blog. It's just letting you know, hey, we're testing this right now. You might see this in a future version of the game. So while, yes, that dev blog might have come out some time ago, the update that it was for just came out, well, today, the day of recording. So that was interesting, which then indicates that these changes very well might be coming to the Wargaming version. Now, some of the other changes that I'm going to definitely be keeping my eye out for is the bigger patch of nerfs that came through, bigger group of buffs that came through some time ago for the California, the Kremlin, the Hayate, ships that desperately have needed buffs for quite some time. They got some in the Russian dev blog, or at least they were announced in the Russian dev blog, and those guys definitely needed those buffs, and maybe those will be coming in the future to the main version of the game. We'll see about that. But The part that's most interesting and is in the title of this video was just released today on the Russian dev blog, and that is changes to fighter spotting. In particular, the change being the removal of fighter spotting. We're finally getting big changes to plane spotting. Maybe, again, with the way things have been going, it was originally looking like these changes announced on the Russian dev blog weren't coming to our version of the game, but they very well might given recent events. So let's go ahead and check this out. Again, this is from the Russian dev blog, so there's no promises that this is actually going to make it to our version of the game, but they have made announcements in the past regarding plane spotting that never went further than a single dev blog article, so I don't see much a difference here in regards to the chance of this making it to the live client. But anyway, if you do want to read this, I do have a link for the Russian dev blog this time. You can find it in the description down below if you want to read along as I read aloud. So let's get into it. So it says, translated by Google. Closed testing changes to the detection mechanics of patrol fighters. In the near future, closed testing with changes to the detection of mechanics of fighters will take place. As part of the changes being tested, the ability to detect enemy ships will be removed from the patrol fighter aircraft. This will change their characteristics. The time it takes fighters to arrive at the call point has been reduced from 6 to 5 seconds. The time after which fighters begin to attack a squadron within the patrol radius has been reduced from 5 to 4 seconds. Thus, fighters will be used more for their main purpose, to fight enemy squadrons. At the same time, aircraft carriers will not be able to simultaneously inflict damage with attack squadrons and detect enemy ships with the help of fighters. The commander's intercept skill will not change and will retain all its characteristics. So, this is pretty big, if this does, again, make it to our version of the game. Now, carriers have two huge roles in the game. One is the providing of information to the friendly team. The other one is, of course, dealing damage to enemy ships. And one very easy way for carrier players to provide information to the enemy team is simply to, well, fly to the other side of the map, drop a fighter behind enemy lines but outside the enemy team's AA range, and now those fighters will sit there and spot for your team the entire duration that they are up for. And then they can, of course, still keep dropping their ordnance on the enemy ships because they don't have to do anything with the fighters. They're just there automatically flying around in a circle, so they can still get damage in while their fighters do all the spotting. And this is what many carrier players do. Just pay attention to them at the beginning of a match. They normally go far over to the enemy side of the map, get just outside of the enemy team's AA range and drop a fighter, and now you have spotting for however long those fighters are up for. And again, they can still keep doing damage with their aircraft. With these changes, at least if the enemy CV wants to spot your team, he has to give up doing damage. Because, yes, carrier players can just fly their planes over you and sit on top of you and spot you, but while they're doing that, they're losing precious time that they could be using to inflict damage upon their targets and, of course, earning XP and credits. So this will at least force the CV player to choose between doing damage and spotting. Something that they do get rewarded quite greatly for either way, but at least they're not just passively doing it with, no risk to them, besides, of course, when they are spotting you, when they are flying in to attack you. But at least you can shoot them down, and they will have to eventually leave, where the fighters that they can drop outside of your AA range just sit there and spot you until their runtime is up. So, of course, while not a the great news that everyone wants to hear that, oh, we're removing plane spotting altogether, I don't think that's going to happen. It is definitely a huge step in the right direction. Another big step in the right direction is the fact that they are reducing the time it takes for the fighters to actually do something. The amount of times that I've seen fighters just diddle-dally and just keep, flying in a circle while I or my teammates are being attacked by the enemy CV is pretty infuriating. This happens with the catapult fighters and with the CV drop fighters as well. I would very much like the fighters to fight the enemy planes and, you know, do something to maybe counter the enemy planes that are about to blow me or my teammates out of the water. So I think any change that makes the fighters do something a bit faster is very much welcome. So hopefully we'll see these changes get over to our client again. With the secondary changes, those are changes that were originally announced only on the Russian client, and then lo and behold, here we are in 12.8 with those changes in tow. So let me know what you guys think about this in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like and leave a comment. It helps out on the YouTube side of things a bunch. And make sure to subscribe as well. We just passed 51,000 subscribers here a few days ago, and I cannot thank you guys enough for that. Hope you guys have a wonderful Wednesday, wonderful rest of your week. I hope to catch you guys in the next one.